As I mentioned on the chat, we'd like you to be very careful with the time because we have short of time here and we have a big panel. So welcome to Cyprus, Sausan. Please let us have your perspective.
Thank you. Do I need to turn off the video or is it okay with only audio?
Yes, switch on the video. Yes, please do. It would be great to see you.
Okay.
She's 8 months pregnant, that's why she couldn't come.
Okay, hello everybody.
Hello.
Hello everybody.
Hi.
Thanks to technology that I could join you, even though I couldn't be with you right now. Maybe the situation in Jordan is different from the countries. I've been listening to the presentations from Egypt and Tunisia. It's very interesting. In Jordan, maybe we don't have revolutions. We don't have even, it's not new to change governments. Every year we have like 1 or 2 governments. But the new thing is that we have people everywhere in the streets calling for reforms. Some of them are calling for maybe constitutional monarchies, others are calling for reducing the powers of the king, others are calling for elected governments. But in general, all calls are in favor of democracy, are in favor of people participating and having better participation in decision making. Maybe it's a bit, it's not that easy, it's a bit complicated in Jordan because people are not unified in their calls for reform. Maybe in the other countries, at least at the very beginning, all people knew what they wanted. They wanted just to change the whole regime. But in Jordan, it's we have different visions of reform. We have the composition of the Jordanian society is very complicated, and this maybe makes it easier for the king, who feels or thinks that he is standing in the middle between maybe left and right, Islamists, non-Islamists, Jordanians from Palestinian origins. So in the middle of all this situation, the common thing between these people is that they feel that they are marginalized and they want to participate in reforming, changing, and deciding about their own lives. Maybe parallel to this political situation, we have the media scene where if we look at the mainstream media, we have long history of media controlled by government. Then we had some changes. We had the private sector appeared, but then we had another problem with commercialization and corporate interests affecting media agendas. And then these two factors, and especially the first one, media controlled by the government, has a great effect because they have many tools in doing that, starting from legislations, which give them the power to, starting with like giving you the license to start or not. And they can do it even without giving you reasons. And then we have many restrictive laws, of course. Then we have, of course, the ownership of media, where most of the mainstream media, and I mean mainly in daily newspapers, is mainly controlled by the government or semi-controlled. Then all this have its influence even on the professionalism of media. We have, with some media outlets, especially the commercial ones, and even the news websites, which is level of freedom, but at the same time they have professional problems and low ethical standards. Now, with all this scene of the mainstream media, we have parallel to this, we have community and social media, and maybe because of the political and media situation I described, this helped or people turned more to community and social media because of that, because they couldn't see themselves, they couldn't hear their voice on the traditional media, so they chose to go to social or community media. When the situation was even, like, in terms of, political and media freedoms, was even worse in 2000. This is when we started as community media network, which is running Balad Radio and a Mannet news website. When we started, we couldn't even get broadcast on FM, and thanks again for technology that we could go to the internet and start from there. And then, since then, we could establish something with community radio on the internet, and it was the first example in the region in general. And since then, we have been trying, of course, to transmit our experience to other cities and to other countries in the region. So we had several experiences in training, setting radios on the internet. In 2005 or early 2006, we could laws in Jordan change and we could get a license to broadcast on FM. So we could have our own radio, Balad Radio, based in Amman as the first community radio in the region. But then it wasn't enough, of course, because part of the real need of community media, in fact, is outside the capital. And that's why, for example, now there are many efforts by us, and we are cooperating with others to have community radios in other cities. We have succeeded, in fact, to attract international organizations, donors, and maybe try to do some advocacy and influence the parliament, the government, to allow having other radios in cities. We have now in Amman, in Karak, in Erbil, these 3 radios, and we have been for the Jordan Valley, with the women in particular in the Jordan Valley for the last few years, even though we couldn't get a license. But again, we tried, we have been always trying to turn around these challenges and find solutions. So we started training people, having a network of women citizen journalists who have been producing and be having their own shows, reports about their own issues in the valley, which is one of the most marginalized, or like they have many problems actually, even water problems. So since then, we established kind of maybe let's call it something like a human effort for later. Now we hope that with the current situation, we will be able to have to get a license to have a radio in the Jordan Valley, and by this it's going to be like the 4th one. This is beside our efforts on the internet, beside our efforts with MR, of course, to start new experiences in the region in general. I think I'll stop by this and be open area for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sausan. It's great that you've been able to join us from a distance, and we've very much appreciated your virtual presence here with us in Cyprus. Please do stay on the line if you can, and if there are any questions later, then we'll come back to you. But we're going to move on now to Lina from Syria. Lina.
Thank you, Sausan.
Thank you.
So, Tunisian revolution take 1 month, and Egyptian take 18. we take till now 9 months, and we didn't finish yet our revolution, unfortunately, and we caused a lot of blood and a lot of people died. So everyone in the Arab world always say before Syria it will not happen a revolution, Syrian revolution. They don't think, even my colleague, they said Syrian never happened in a revolution. For many reasons, of course. The most important reason, the first one, is because we don't have political parties from 40 years ago. And the second, even the government, the regime, they don't allow anybody to speak their opinion. They put it in the jail. So we don't have political parties, and we don't have anybody who has opinion. Everybody who has opinion, they are in jail for many, many years. But even so, the Syrian revolution began after, I think, after Egypt, after Libya. Yes, and of course media, like Egypt, all the media, even private media, it belonged to a businessman who involved with the regime, unfortunately. So now, in this day, we cannot do anything in the media, because if you say anything against the regime, they will cut your transmission. It's in a simple way. We are in the radio. Before the revolution, we work in a social radio. We are the only radio who work with the social issues in the society. Other radio, we have 13 now radios, private radios. They work as entertainment, and they don't make any social issues because it's very sensitive project. They don't want to talk about it. So before this revolution, we already talk about very sensitive issues. We make a cooperation with many other countries. Now we stop everything, because if we say hi to foreign person, we may be arrested, because we already say we have the money from this person and we work against the regime. So now, for 9 months, we stop every cooperation with all other radio in the world, because it's dangerous for us. I'm not a political person. I just work in human rights, in social issues in my society in Syria. Even so, maybe at any moment, maybe they will arrest me just because I say my opinion. I don't say anything against the regime, but I say the truth, what happened in the street every day. But even though they arrested everyone, tell the truth, unfortunately. So, of course, the truth, I take the truth from the street. I have a lot of friends in all over Syria, and a lot of my friends work in the revolution, Syrian revolution. So I take the truth always from the street, not from any other source. What happened now in the street more than you see in the media, really. You put it now, Ahmed, this video shot, and the person, he's faces the water, you know. Our people in Syria faces the weapon and the gun. And really, when they are 1,000, when the army begin to shot on them, they begin to increase more and more. They don't afraid anymore. They broke the fear wall. They don't afraid anymore. So I think the Syrian revolution is a must, I don't know what we call it, it's a must courage revolution, must honest, because we have a lot of violence against our people, really. And the media, I have a lot of friends in working media arrested now in the prison. So we have a very tough time now. We hope it will, we have a resolution, a result as fast as we can, because wherever it takes time, it become the society of Syria become more divided, unfortunately, and people fight between each other. And so we hope it will finish as fast as we wish.
As you may have noticed, I don't seem to be getting a connection now from Mohammed Abu-Jannah in Benghazi. That's a shame. So we may have to skip on that and go straight on to Dawood. Just to say, both Dawood and I were in Benghazi only a week and a half ago. We had the opportunity to meet with Mohammed Abu-Jannah and his colleagues working with Shabab Libya FM, which is, I would say, is the first community radio station in Libya. It's a great project, and it's one of many stations that are setting up rather rapidly in Libya. It's interesting the extent to which they're able to do so in conditions which are a kind of political vacuum, if you like. The absence of the state is what is enabling them to establish. And stations like Shabab Libya FM have a permit which consists of a letter of approval from the local Benghazi council saying it's okay, you can go on air if you find a suitable frequency, and that's their permit. And they've appropriated some equipment from the cupboards of the local former state broadcaster, and they're broadcasting about, I think it's about 8 hours a day now, with a very dynamic team of young people. And the most exciting thing that they told us about their project was when they first started broadcasting, there was no music, and they're kind of quite a music-oriented radio station and want to kind of entertain people. There was no music other than songs praising Gaddafi. And obviously that was not the most appropriate thing for a revolutionary radio station to be playing. But what did happen almost immediately after the uprising in Benghazi was that young people started making new music. They started recording rap songs. And within a couple of months, Shabab Libya became known as the rap radio, because it was playing revolutionary rap wall to wall. And you know, it's the mix, I think, between radio and the emergent cultural environment, I think, is very exciting. I'm not getting any response from Mohammed, so I'm going to go straight on to Dawood, and if he does come online, then we will come back to him. Okay.
Thank you, Steve. I broke my teeth in media-wise in Palestine during the Intifada, the Palestinian uprising. And as you saw here, and as I saw with Steve in Libya, countries that are in a kind of a chaotic, uncentralized governments seem to have much more opportunities of setting up radios, including community radios. And centralized governments are, you know, like the enemy of community media. We saw that in Palestine, we saw it in Lebanon, we see it now in Iraq, we're seeing it in Libya. And I think one of the problems with the Egyptians is the military took over so quickly, there was really no gap in which people can go on the air, and I think it's going to be a big challenge. But I want to give you a little bit of much deeper background than what you heard from Steve and others, because I know you're concentrating a lot on the Arab Spring, but until you understand some of the deeper media background in the Middle East, I think you'll have a hard time understanding the big problem we're facing with community radio. Most of the Arab world, radio was the second most important instrument for military revolutions, not like the revolution we're seeing now, but the military coup that took place in most of the Arab world took over 2 locations. 1, the palace, and 2, the radio station. And so immediately after any revolution, and then I wouldn't call it a revolution, a coup, the military coup would take place, whether it was in Syria and other countries. The commander of the revolt would go on radio with his statement, بلغنا رقم واحد, statement number 1, and announce that whoever he is took over, and from then on they control. Now, they're not stupid, these guys, you know, they took over using radio, and so they didn't want anybody else to kick them out using radio. So the most guarded location in most of the Arab world is a local radio and TV station. I don't know if you saw the Libyan one. Steve, if you haven't, you could show them to them. We want to see the Libyan transmitter site. I mean, it's like a military compound to get to it. Because again, these guys, they don't want somebody to do it to them. And with time, television came on board. And in the Arab world, radio, state-run radio and television are the direct instrument of power and control. Most governments have what we call a red phone between the palace, the prime minister, the president, the king, whoever, and the editor or the managing director of radio and television. There's a sometimes they actually have an office in the TV station, and they literally see what is going to be read and shown on television. Until 1995, you never saw live interview on Arab television. Never. You saw a presenter read the news because somebody wrote it for him. But if you did a live interview, you cannot control it if you were a control freak. Only when Al Jazeera and other satellite stations started to do live interviews did we see live interviews in the Arab world. Until then, somebody wrote the speech, they brought a beautiful looking woman or a man who could read well, and so they were reading the government, basically, speeches. And of course, when we were in Libya, we saw that in a much even worse situation. Until now, Egypt, 40,000 employees of the state-run radio and television, they don't know what to do with them. There is no other radio and TV station except the state-run. The state-run TV and radio are created by decree, by a law called the Radio and Television Law. And the president appoints the director general. It's totally controlled by the government. And sometimes they collect license fees, but it just goes to the treasury, and it's a control situation. Newspapers are mixed in Arab countries. You have private and you have government-owned. But whether it is government-owned, partially government-owned, or private, there is a very close relationship between the governments and these private owners. They are in bed together. They are very close together. You scratch my back, I scratch your back. You don't get your paper in the country, you don't get your ink, you don't get anything done unless you toe the line. So even if you are private, and there are very few private, most of the news goes to the state media, state radio, state television, state newspaper. That's the order. The journalist union, which in any country is usually independent source of journalistic civil society and union, is controlled by the government, by the intelligence service. They appoint people who work in the state-run radio, state-run television, state media to make up the union. So it's a closed circle. When we talk about community radio, we divide the media into 3 streams. We say there's state or public, private, and community. State in Arab world controlled by the government. Private media is controlled by government or people in bed with government. The only area where there is opportunity for independent, pluralistic media is in the community media. And it is fought like crazy. The revolution in Egypt has not yet produced an on-the-air FM station yet. In Tunisia, they still are waiting for the prime minister to sign. In the country where I come from, in Jordan, the cabinet has to approve a tiny little radio station. And they can, by law, they can say no, and they don't give an answer. The law says they don't have to explain why they said no. They just say no. We applied in Jordan for a radio station in Zarqa, the second biggest city with a lot of poverty. We were rejected. We applied for a radio station in the Jordan Valley for women. In the year of the agriculture year that the country created, a year for women, and we said we want to set up a radio for women in the Jordan Valley. They said no. No explanation was given. We have to pay a fee. Not only is there a very high fee, there is no waiver for community radio, but we have to pay in Jordan a fee 50% more than the regular fee if you want to do news and politics. Now, I don't know how to explain this. They should give us a discount for doing news. You all know how much it costs to do news. And a station that does a playlist of music on a little computer doesn't have to pay